Okay, my name is Kwesia Samoa, and I'll be your guide. Before we start going around the dungeons, I'll give you a brief introduction about Elmina Castle. So Elmina Castle was built by the Portuguese in 1482. They came here in 1471 to trade and spread Christianity. When they were coming here, they came along with guns, gunpowder, clothes, sweets, tobacco, and so many things to exchange with gold, ivory, and the local spices with the local people. Before the Portuguese arrived here, there was a name. That's Anumansa, which means inexhaustible water, the water we drink and never gets finished. But they named this place Elmina, which means the mine, because of the richness in gold. And in the 16th century, that's when the Portuguese attention shifted from the barter trade to slave trade. Someone may ask what even triggered that. In America, they discovered that the land was fertile and good for plantation, and they were raising the Native Americans to work on the land. The Native Americans are the Indians. Due to American diseases and overwork, they were dying, so they need to get another option. There was a Spanish priest called Bartolomeo de las Casas who suggested that Africans are really strong and can work under such conditions. And how they were getting them here was through force capturing, battering, and through prisoners of wars. The tribes were fighting among each other because every tribe wanted to be superior over the other tribe. So whenever the Europeans see that, they will take advantage of that, help one tribe with the tools that they had to defeat the other one, and give them to the Europeans as slaves. So the division of Africans helped the Europeans getting people from here to the New World. And the Portuguese spent 155 years here. Later were attacked by the Dutch in 1637. The Dutch took over, protected themselves very well here, and spent 235 years. And later the Dutch sold the castle to the British in 1872. When the British took over, they've already built Cape Coast Castle for slave trade. So they use this place as a sub-administration center before Ghana gained independence. And the British spent 85 years. And Ghana gained independence in 1957. Now Ghana is 67 years. So this castle is 542 years and is still counting. The first and the largest castle in West Africa. So this is a brief introduction about Elmina Castle. Looking at the dungeons where they kept the Africans, the room of no return being the last place they took the Africans before they were sent to the New World, the branding room. The reason why the Africans were branded before they were sent to the New World in so many places. So this is a brief introduction about Elmina Castle. Let's follow me. Yeah, so I want to show you something here. Please come closer. Looking over here, these are moats. We have inner moats and the outer moats. Whenever there is attack coming to the castle, they raise the bridge over here and fill these moats with seawater so that enemies can get access to the castle. And looking right here, this is a navigational compass. During that time, that was what they were using to determine time. They'll put a stick at the middle and the shadow that appears will tell the time, just like a sundial. Let's move to the next place, please. Okay, these are two separate cells. This is the European cell, and this is the condemned or the African cell. So why do we have two separate cells here? Let's go inside and compare the two separate cells. Let's move this way first. Over here, the European soldiers who were misbehaving in the castle, going out without permission and drinking alcohol, were brought in this cell. They will provide them food and also water and spend some hours here, then they will send them back from the cell. That was the only punishment for the soldiers who were misbehaving in the castle. And the other cell is the condemned or the African cell, where they kept the Africans who were fighting for their freedom. So we are going to compare this cell to the African cell. Please come this way. Have a look at this place. Okay, this is the condemned or the African cell where they brought the freedom fighters. Some of the Africans were fighting for their freedom, and especially the leaders of the freedom fighters were brought here. Looking at this place, a very good bad source of ventilation. No one came here and went back alive. Whenever they bring them here, they will die before they will send their body out. The last place of the Africans who died was in the sea. They would tie their legs with a rock or a cannonball and throw their bodies in the sea. So this was the condition for the Africans who were fighting for their freedom, and over there was the condition for the soldiers who were misbehaving in the castle. At this point, we have a look at the branding room, intersection room, and the room of no return. Please come this way. Okay, this is the male courtyard. Looking at all the rooms here were the male dungeons, and in general about 600 males were kept in these dungeons. And looking at the slanted wall here, there are two in the castle. There's another one over there. They are buttresses, which was added by the Dutch to hold and strengthen the walls of the castle. And the metal on it were also added by the British. In 1948, the British used the castle for police school. So the police were using this to train, climbing it as exercise. And looking at this building, this is the first Catholic church in Ghana, which was built by the Portuguese. When the Dutch took over the castle, the Dutch divided the church into two, used up as junior soldiers' mess, where the junior soldiers were enjoying themselves. And they used the down part as auction room, where they were marketing the Africans. And when the British took over the castle, the British used this place as one of their classrooms, where they were teaching the mixed race, becoming missionaries and interpreters. So you have a look at the female courtyard, and I will explain more about how they were getting the mixed race. Looking up there, the last floor was where the governor was, and the second part was for the deputy governor. The third one here, these were for the merchants, the soldiers, and the missionaries who were in the castle. So let's have a look at the room of no return. Please come this way. So this is where the Africans were branded before they were sent to the New World. They were taken to different places, and they had companies that were buying the Africans. One of the companies was the West Indies Company. They had metals with initials of the merchants that were buying the Africans. So they would put those metals in fire, stamp it on the chest of the male enslaved Africans for easily identification. And due to the shock, most of them were dying here, but the females were given tags on their wrists and their necks before they would meet the males at the intersection room, count them there before they send them to the room of no return. And where we are now is one of the male slave dungeons. And about 150 males were kept in this dungeon because some of the males were very aggressive, fighting for their freedom. Giving them food, they will sometimes throw the food through this hole up there. So when the food drops down, they fight for the food, and the stronger ones get something to eat, but the weaker ones don't get anything to eat. And the males who be in this dungeon will be counted first before they will bring the other males from their various dungeons to this place, count them there before they will send them to the room of no return. So at this point, you have a look at the intersection room and the room of no return. Please come with me here. So slave exit to waiting boat. Watch your steps as you are entering here. Okay, this is the intersection room where the Africans were counted before they were sent to the room of no return. They're talking about this place. The females who survived in the dungeons will use this side, and the males who survived will also use this place. Counting them here, you can see someone you know for last will be your wife or your husband, but they were not allowed to talk to each other. Randomly, they can send the wife to the Caribbean countries and take the husband to America, which means they won't see each other again. And because the tribes were not speaking the same language, it was very difficult for them to understand each other. That didn't help them to trust each other, fighting together for their freedom. So they'll be counted here before they send them to the room of no return. Let's have a look at the room of no return. You bend down your head at least 3 or more steps before you raise your head up. Okay, this is the last place they brought the Africans before they were sent to the New World. This is the room of no return, and this is the door of no return. When they were doing the barter trade, the exchange of goods for goods, the door was bigger. But when the attention shifted from the barter trade to slave trade, They reduce the dot to this size so that they can count the Africans very well and control them very well. And at first, the sea was very closer to the castle, but due to the rotation of the earth and the sea defense over here, the sea has pushed or receded to that side. So a ship will come, but the ship will be very far from the castle, and a smaller boat will come closer to the castle to pick the Africans and take them to where the ships were before they will send them to the New World. And going to the New World, when they go to the New World, some of them got a chance to escape. Those are the Maroons. To talk about the Maroons, they are the enslaved or the escaped enslaved Africans. The descendants of the Maroons can now be found in the Caribbean countries and some parts of North America, talking about Haiti, Suriname, Jamaica, and the others. Looking at all these places, the wreath and the materials we see here were brought by the people who visit this castle to pay homage to our ancestors. So this is the room of no return. You have a look at the dungeons where the enslaved Africans were kept. Please come this way. Okay, this is the female courtyard. And all the rooms here were the female dungeons. In general, about 400 females were kept in these dungeons. And looking at this, it's a reservoir. It contains rainy water. About 20,000 gallons of water can be in this reservoir. When the Portuguese were building the castle, they made this for domestic use. But when the Dutch took over, they were afraid that the Portuguese might have poisoned them. And due to that, they didn't use this reservoir and made their own reservoir at a different place. The coastal line of West Africa was termed as the white man's grave. When they came here, they were dying of malaria, and due to that, they didn't bring their wives, so they took advantage of the female sexually. Because of the governor's position, he would stand up there. That was the governor's balcony, and instructs the soldiers to bring out the females. He would select his choice. When they are chosen, because they were not taking their bath in the dungeons, they will use this water to wash their body before they will send them to the governor's bedroom. So let's have a look at the secret passage to the governor's bedroom. So this is where the females used to where the governor was. Talking about the females who were chosen by the governor. So whenever the females are chosen by the governor, the soldiers will lead them from this place to where he was. When they get pregnant by the governor or the soldiers were also harassing them sexually. Whenever the females get pregnant, they will send them to the Elmina town. They built a lot of storehouses in the town. So whenever they send them there and they give birth, they will stay there for about 7 to 8 years. For the children to learn the local language before they will bring them back to the castle for formal education, for them becoming missionaries, interpreters, and also soldiers. But the mothers won't have any contact with their children again. Some of the females were brought back to the castle to do all the domestic works. Because they didn't bring their wives, the soldiers were doing everything. But when they are brought back to the castle to work, they won't be allowed to have any contact with their children. The females who were not brought back here to work won't also be in the dungeons again. They will be free to stay in the Elmina town because they didn't want the children to know more about their mothers. When you come to this town, you see a lot of mixed race here, and you'll be hearing some European names like the Van Dyke, Ferguson, Anderson, Bilson, and so on. All these names are some of the influence of the Europeans when they arrived here. So we go to the governor's bedroom, but can't use this text. It's very weak now, so use a different route to where the governor was. Let's have a look at the dungeons. Or the females were being difficult, allowing themselves for the governor. So whenever the females are chosen by the governor, they are being difficult. Over there is a cannonball, and it weighs about 28 kilograms. So they will chain their ankle to the cannonball and they will stay in the sun or in the rain till they change their minds that they allow themselves for the governor. If they don't change their minds, they will stay here till they become very weak. Then they will send them back to the dungeons. That was done to put fear in the other women in the dungeon, so that whenever they are being chosen by the governor, they won't hesitate but allow themselves for the governor. Let's have a look at the dungeons. Come this way, please. And this is the largest female dungeon. About 150 females were kept in this dungeon. Because they were not allowed to move out, they kept containers in the dungeons. Whenever they want to ease themselves, they will do it in the containers. When the containers are full, the only option they had was to do everything on the floor. And females menstruate every month. During that time, they were still not allowed moving out and they were doing everything in the dungeons. They spent 2 to 3 months in the dungeons before the ships would be ready to send them to the New World and work on the land that was fertile and good for plantation. Looking at this place, these are sedimentary rocks, and these are the rocks used in building the castle. Looking over here, the hole here leads to the magazine where they store their ammunition, their guns, gunpowder, and other tools. Whenever there is leakage at the magazine, it comes straight to the dungeons, and the chemicals over there started killing most of the females because they couldn't contain it. So in the dungeons, a lot of the Africans died before they took the survived ones to the New World. 600 being the males and 400 being the females. There will be about 1,000 at a season. But because of the conditions in the dungeons, taking them to the New World, the number can reduce to 700, 800, or even 900. These are the conditions that they were in. And when they got to the New World, the condition became worse than in the ships and in the dungeons. So you go to the other dungeon. I'll talk more about what happened in the ships when they were going to the New World. These were the only source of ventilation in the dungeons. Talking about this side and the other one over there. This place was locked. The food they gave them was rice with red oil, brown bread, and also boiled maize. And they would spend, as I said earlier, 2 to 3 months before they were sent to the New World. The food given to them wasn't given to them to be satisfied, but was given to them for them to stay alive. So let's have a look at how difficult it would be for the enslaved Africans being in the dungeons for about 2 to 3 months with all these conditions. Let's have a look at the other dungeon. So this is one of the female dungeons, and over here about 130 females were also kept. Looking at these sacks on the floor are not original. In 2015, an exhibition was held here, and about 40 people from different West African countries came to do the exhibition to pay homage to our ancestors. So during that time, they slept here for a day, and they used these clothes to cover themselves. The next day, when the door was opened, here was smelling very bad because they urinated here during the exhibition, and some of the people who participated in the exhibition were also sick due to the conditions that they were in. So let's imagine the time the enslaved Africans will be in the dungeons for 2 to 3 months before they will be sent to the New World. What will even happen to them during that time? Someone may also ask the reason why people from different West African countries joined people here for the exhibition. During that time, some of the Africans were captured and brought from different West African countries. Coming to this place, they had a route they used, which is the northern part of Ghana. When they go to a place called Asen Manson, there's a river called the Asen River. They will stop at the riverside and wash the body of the Africans. That was the last bath before they walk barefooted from there to this place and keep them in the dungeons for 2 to 3 months before they will be sent to the New World. Coming from Asen Manson to this place will be about 1 hour, 30 minutes drive. So coming from there, most of them died because of the condition that they were in. Looking at these bricks, this is the yellow bricks, belongs to the Dutch. And the red ones we see on the floor belongs to the Portuguese. When the Portuguese were building the castle, they used sedimentary rocks, but these bricks was in support of building it. But when the Dutch also attacked the Portuguese in 1637, due to the bombarded areas, they used these yellow bricks to fix all the bombarded areas in the castle. And another reason behind these 2 separate bricks was when they were coming here, they were using the bricks to balance their ships. But when they are going back to the New World, how they will arrange the Africans in the ships will balance it when they are going back to the New World. And that also killed some of them. How they arranged them, most of them couldn't breathe well and died in the ships. And when they got to the New World, or another reason behind these 2 separate bricks was when they were coming, they were using the bricks to balance their ships. And as I said earlier, when they are going, how they arrange them will balance the ships. And also, because the land was discovered new and was fertile and good for plantation, they needed the stronger ones to work on the land. So when they are sick in the ships, they would tie their legs with a rock or just take their bodies from the ship and throw their bodies in the sea. So going to the New World, those who died in the ships were more than those who died in the dungeons because the condition in the ships was worse than the condition in the dungeons. And when they go to the New World working on the land, the condition became worse than in the dungeons. Looking at these bars, these are not the original bars, but these are some of the original bars. Because these bars are very old, it has been replaced with these bars. So you have a look at the next place, please. This was the female passage to the intersection room, where the Africans were counted before they were sent to the New World. So the females who survived will use this route, and the males will use the other place that I showed you. Let's have a look at the next place. Okay, so the stairs the females use to the governor's bedroom. When you climb the stairs, this is where they will use before they get to where the governor was. The stairs I showed you earlier. The governor's bedroom. A very good source of ventilation, a nice view here. So looking at this place, whilst one person was here, about 1,000 enslaved Africans were in the dungeon screaming and shouting for freedom. And Don Diego de Azambuja, he led about 200 soldiers, told the locals that they needed a place that can help them protect their trade and a place that can help them store their tools and the materials. So they gave them this land. During the castle, they got help from the local people because it was just barter trade. And in the 16th century, when the attention shifted from the barter trade to the slave trade, they turned all the rooms that were storeroom to dungeons, where they kept the enslaved Africans. So have a look at the 2 living rooms for the governor. These are the 2 living rooms for the governor. Whilst the governor had a bedroom and 2 living rooms here, the enslaved Africans, about 150 Africans will be in a dungeon, talking about one dungeon. So let's have a look, or let's see how difficult it will be for about 150 people being in one dungeon. Looking at that place, there wasn't good source of ventilation. But looking at this place just for one person, look at how ventilated or well ventilated this place is. And this was the governor's balcony where he stands to select his choice. Okay, when the Portuguese came here, they had their kitchen, which was this place. But when the Dutch took over the castle, they didn't use the Portuguese kitchen and find a place near the Portuguese kitchen. This is also the Dutch kitchen, where the Dutch soldiers were cooking for the Dutch governor. So you have a look at the Dutch Reformed Church. Okay, when the Dutch used the Portuguese church as auction room selling the Africans, they used this place as a church. So this is a Dutch Reformed Church. Looking at these writings here, over here, it's written in Old Dutch, and it says Zion is the temple of the Lord, and here is his eternal habitation. So they believe that anytime they come here to worship God, he's always here with them. But beneath this church, we have one of the female slave dungeons. So while the Africans were in the dungeon screaming for their freedom, the Europeans, were talking about the Dutch, were here worshiping God. Okay, so this will be the end of their tour. And in conclusion, the Portuguese came here first in 1471. They built the castle in 1482, spent 155 years here, and later were attacked by the Dutch in 1637. The Dutch took over the castle, protected themselves very well here, and spent 235 years. Later, the Dutch sold the castle to the British in 1872. When the British took over the castle, because they've used Cape Coast Castle for slave trade, they used this place as a sub-administration center. Spent 85 years here before Ghana gained independence in 1957, and now Ghana is 67 years. So this castle is 542 years and is still counting. This is the first and the largest castle in West Africa. And slavery is still going on mentally. Freddie Douglass also says something that knowledge makes a man unfit to be a slave. So we learn our history very well, make our culture our first priority, make good use of our own resources. History like this won't repeat itself again. Thank you very much. And once again, my name is Kwesi Asamoah Yeboah. Thank you very much.